And welcome. David Levin here, Raising Your Game Today. This is Tuesday, so we're talking about life playing sports. Fridays are for life outside of sports. This week, I want to talk about the mental game advice you hear almost everywhere. Because the truth is, and I don't love saying this because it's a bit more in your face than I'm comfortable with, but it sucks. It really does. It's weak. It's wrong in a lot of cases. It's just not helpful. And a lot of times, it can actually make things worse. And it just makes me mad. So I'm thinking about this because I came across a couple of articles recently that reminded me how bad this can be. These were specifically for pickleball, but the mental game is universal, of course. All athletes have the same basic problems. They get nervous, they lose their confidence, they get upset when they make a mistake and they can't snap out of it. They get stuck in their head, they make bad choices. That's pretty much the story for all sports and at all levels. But these articles were on pickleball websites. And the first one was a long list of different scenarios with several suggestions for each. If your opponent is playing great, for example, here's a helpful thought you can think. And here are 4 strategic things you can do. And then be cerebral, not emotional. And finally, don't give in to this particular negative thought. So that was 5 or 6 different suggestions, all in the first paragraph. And if you're thinking, oh, that sounds great, it's a gold mine of useful information. It's actually not. It's too much to process in the moments, and none of it will ultimately be helpful in the heat of a game. So let me break that down. The first point, here's a helpful thought you can think. In this case, the thought was, here's what she has to do to beat me. That's the thought you're supposed to think. And the idea is to turn the perspective around. They're not a super powerful competitor and you have no chance against them. You are the powerful one that they have to rise up to. And if you can get them off their rhythm, you can beat them. So that's helpful, to be fair. But here's the problem. First, this is one very specific situation. Strong opponent, playing great, beating you for the moment. So you have to have that thought filed away in your memory somewhere. And when the situation comes up, you have to remember to think it. More important, you have to be able to shut down the negative thoughts you're thinking instead, because that's the reality of what's going on, right? They're outplaying you and you're freaking out. All sorts of unhelpful negative thoughts and emotions going on in there. So that's the real problem, getting control of those, and the author says nothing about how to do that. Then, assuming you can remember the main thought, now there are the strategic suggestions. Slow down the pace, hit to the other player, change your spin, play more to the middle. Again, all potentially helpful, but you have to remember them. And in my experience, in the heat of the moment, that is not an easy thing to do. And this brings us to one of the biggest points that virtually all coaching misses, and that explains why this kind of advice doesn't work and can actually make things worse. The key to peak performance, as you may have heard me say elsewhere, is getting out of your head, being fully focused and present, and executing what needs to be done to succeed in the moment. That is pretty much the whole story. You train and train and train until you work the skills into your subconscious. And then during competition, you quiet your thoughts and let your training come out. That's how you play at your best. It's true in every sport, in every situation, at every level. So any mental game suggestion that requires you to be in your head to do it is pulling you in the wrong direction, by definition. If you have a 3-part model, for example, you need to remember, it's not going to work. If you need to debate your negative thoughts and replace them with positive thoughts, it's not going to work. It's a super obvious point once you see it, but most mental game suggestions don't see it. By their very nature, they are not going to be practical in the heat of competition. And they might even make things worse because they pull you off into your head and get you into this spiral of thinking and reacting and getting more and more frustrated and off your game. Back to the article. And by the way, this is just the first paragraph of 9 paragraphs. There are an insane number of similarly good-sounding but ultimately unhelpful suggestions packed into this piece. But the last part of this first paragraph points to the other big problem. It says, be cerebral, not emotional. And don't give in to this particular negative thought they mentioned in the article. So control your emotions. Don't let them take over. Also control your thoughts. Literally don't yet let yourself think this particular negative thought. So again, helpful suggestions, super helpful actually, but controlling our thoughts and emotions is not something we normally know how to do. It's actually incredibly difficult to do until you've learned how. And the article offers not one word about how to do it. That is the biggest mistake that virtually all mental game coaching makes. And you see this over and over and over. It tells players what to do without telling them how to do it. And this is just super frustrating for everyone involved, but especially for the players themselves. If I'm struggling with my mental game, I already know that. I know a particular thought is not helping me. I know it would be better if I could stop thinking it. But in the moment, when it comes up, what am I supposed to do about that? How do you stop thinking a thought? How do you stop feeling an emotion? That's what players need to learn. It's called cognitive control and emotional self-regulation. But most mental game training does not tell them how to do it, which is why it doesn't give them the help they need, and it can also be so frustrating. Now, we actually do tell players how to do that. This is exactly what our sports academy training teaches them to do, which is why it's so uniquely powerful. But until they've learned those specific skills, they don't know how. And no amount of telling them that they need to do it is going to help. It's just going to be more and more frustrating. When someone tells you what you need to do, but not how to do it, when you read an article like this that's packed with suggestions that don't actually help in the moment, you don't think, oh, I guess that was bad advice. You think, there's something wrong with me, right? That's the truth. You think, it all sounds good. I should be able to do it, but I can't seem to do it. I guess it's me. I just don't have what it takes. That's the big reason this kind of advice makes me so crabby. Not only is it not practical, it actually makes things worse because it gives players one more reason to feel bad about themselves and to not have the confidence they need to play well and to have fun with their sport. So that's why most mental game advice sucks, and the things you should watch out for when you see advice online. Number one, if it tells you what to do without telling you how to do it, ignore it. It's not going to help. Number two, if it's a list of things you have to remember in the moment, just move on. That's more about making the author look smart than it is about helping you actually improve your game. You need to learn how to control your thoughts and emotions in the moment. And you need one or two things at a time to work on. Anything more than that will not be practical and may just make things worse. If you'd like to learn about our training on how to do that, go to raiseyourinnergame.com. There are links here in the notes. For more thoughts on mental game mastery, check out the post, What Does the Ultimate Level of Mental Game Mastery Look Like? Also a link here in the notes. Otherwise, I hope that was helpful. Keep up the good work. I will see you next time.